Guys, and welcome to this new episode of 10-Minute Tips. So in this one, I'm just going to go about my process on how I create shoulder armor if I'm doing a character, medieval character or something like that. So quick dirty base mesh, I'll start masking out the area and just to get that kind of that shape, and just Control W hit to group that on its own. Then I'll mask it off and do mask by edge loop or mask by border, and basically then duplicate it. I'll duplicate the whole subtool so I can split that off and have it completely separate from the original, which is nice and easy. I'll do a kind of polish by groups for a bit first, then I'll start a Z remesh. Now sometimes if the topology is all over the place, the remesh is going to go crap. So what I'll do is I'll go into group loops and I'll just do a panel loop, and it'll give it a nice even edge, and then I'll just remesh from there, and it should give you nice clean even topology, like an even loop around the outside, which is what I want. So then I'll just start building up the shape. So for this part, we're just going to do the bottom part, so the leathery kind of part of the shoulder armor, and then I'll put kind of a steel plate on top of it. So there we go. Just use the Z modeler, extrude it out on how I want that kind of leather to look, that kind of leather padding, and just put a bit of a seam in there, which I'll work on later. Bevel the edges, and then go a quick Dynamesh in a moment. Well, not Dynamesh, sorry. I'll do a dynamic subdiv just to see how it's going to look. And yeah, quite happy with that. Nice and easy. Then group by I'll group by normals, take off that front part, and I'll kind of split that off as well. So I'll duplicate it, Control drag with the Z modeler when you're on QMesh, and get a separate subtool, split that off, and we'll go from there. And this part will be the steel plating on top of the armor. So I'll just take that edge off, make it a little bit smaller. I think at this stage I've got to change the settings on my tablet because it's been overly sensitive with things. So yeah, just split that off and extrude that again, QMesh it out, and give it a bit of a bevel. Not sure what I've done here. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'll redo the whole thing, and then we'll just bevel it off. Just give it kind of rounded edges, which I'll then dynamic subdiv again just to give it some kind of shape. Get the move brush and start moving it around just to kind of fit that form of that underlying padding. Now this is just quick and easy kind of blocking out. I'll go in later after I've done all this and really start refining it, or use this just as kind of a reference, and then I'll go and rebuild the whole thing. But for this stage, just getting a block out on how I want it to look. So just moving that around, just so it kind of butts up against the edges or that lip of the leather there, that kind of puckered up lip. And yep, just go back and add a new little loop where I want a seam to go instead of cutting it out with a damn standard. Like I said, at this stage it's just really dirty. I kind of work, my workflow is I work, well, not so slow, but I really like to kind of have stuff to work from. So even if I'm just building something later on down the line that's going to be very refined, I'll do a kind of semi-refined base version or block-in version, and this is still just kind of like blocking out. So just give that a nice little loop, and yep, QMesh it through so later I can kind of pinch it together. And here I'm just going to kind of mess up the plating, so I'll apply the dynamic subdivision to it and just subdivide it up a bit just to give it a bit more geometry, and then I'll start messing up the edge with the orb flatten brush, or trim dynamic, sorry, in this case. And it's just kind of giving that dented, kind of hammered edges, chipped and bent in, and then I will go over the entire mesh doing that, just around the edges, and just random strokes. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I just want it to look kind of old and worn, not pristine edges or anything like that. Just like somebody's whacked down a piece of wrought iron that's been hammered into shape on this padding, and the padding underneath is to obviously protect the shoulder and that, because you don't want iron sitting on you. So yeah, that's what this is for. It's just to give it that kind of wrought iron, hammered, dented, chipped look that over time and where it'll get. You could do this in the normal map with texturing or whatnot. But like I said, because this is an early stage, and then I'm just dragging over a hammered orb hammered marks type brush here, just to give it that kind of texture of what kind of forged steel would look like. Just now adding some little divots, which is where I'll put the rivets that are holding it to the actual padding in. And it's, like I said, it's really, really simple. And to do that, because I like to work really low for little tiny details like this, what I'll do is I'll duplicate the subtool, and then I'll use a insert mesh in that. But at this stage, I'm just going to mess that up first before I do that. So just adding some cracks and cuts and just wear and tear damage here. Just again, random strokes. There's probably no rhyme or reason. I should probably look into being a bit more specific on it, but you know, this is old. And then when it's painted in that, you can kind of do kind of a dry brush effect on it to make it look like the steel showing through, or a cleaner steel towards the worn one. But here we go, just splitting off the mesh. And I will use this little rivet insert brush and just pop them all around the edge. Just one at a time, being overly sensitive on the tablet here again, so it was doing two at once. I think I need to update the driver on it, I'm not too sure. And just working those into place all around. I could have used a loop thingy, but I preferred not to. I like a little bit more control over where they go. So there we go. Split them off, make them my own soap tool, delete the one I used for a base, and they're quick, dirty, and easy. And like I said, it's just for something nice and simple. And then you can do any kind of shape or form you want. You can build up onto it. Sometimes I'll add like another kind of piece of steel that looks like it's welded to it, kind of like a shoulder or a neck guard to it. And here I'm just using a cloth alpha to give that leather a bit of a kind of puckering look around the edges. And it just kind of helps me with the final image. But just, yeah, dragging that out. Just gives it kind of that stitched in where it's kind of got puckering at the edges that you see in a lot of fabric, especially with leather, especially stronger or tougher leather. And we'll do this. Quick, like I said, again, and I'll just reiterate, quick and easy, and just for a base, just to kind of work out how I want it done later. And here I'm just kind of adding some extra little edge loops in that because I'm going to use Mask by Polygroup or Polyloop, and then just throw in some stitching just for kind of like that look on the edges. Just going about how I want to do it. And then I have a bit of a idea because I wasn't thinking clearly. And instead of just cutting it out like that, I just go into use Z modeler and just Polygroup, Polyloop. Quick and easy, click, and there you go. And just give them separately. Now I'll just go into some stitching, which I've forgotten where I put the brush. We'll find it in a second. These are all my insert mesh brushes that, I mean, I'll use when I remember to use them. Sometimes I just get so into it that I don't. I'll sculpt whatever's there, but like, you know, this is a 10-minute thing, so I wanted to kind of do it nice and quick. I'll probably do one later on how I do stitching really specifically to make it look like it's actually really indented. And I've got a brush I've made that that does that. It'll drag the stitch out, but it'll put a little kind of divot in the mesh itself to make it look like it's actually stitched in there. So just doing that, and I will add the curve, nice and simple, and split that off again. Delete the hidden, do it with the second one, but it's going to be smaller. And there's very minute detail, which I'll kind of later on, that will be in the normal map itself. But yep, and there we have it, just that final little detail of the stitching, and then that's just like a base block out version of some armor, shoulder pads, or pauldron, or whatever you want to call it, or how I will go about it, the process. So I'll just do it in a couple of bits, merge them all down, and yeah, quick, easy, and just using that base mesh at the beginning kind of helps the shape of it. So that's it. That's it for this episode of 10 Minute Tips. Next one will be out next year, off on holiday. So have a very Merry Christmas. Bye.